I don't know why, but I feel like this video is going to upset a few people. I was looking through TikTok lately, I was scrolling through and I came across a video which caught my attention. It was a live clip of Joe Satriani playing his song Satch Boogie, but with a noticeable difference. It was Joe Satriani playing a Gibson Les Paul instead of his Ibanez. I think the clip is from a concert in memory of Les Paul, the artist, which would make sense as to why he's playing a Les Paul, the guitar, in the clip. He's obviously playing a Les Paul in memory of Les Paul. But for me personally, seeing this video, it just confirms what I've already thought for years now. And it might be kind of controversial, but my thoughts are that gear and equipment are almost irrelevant. And for the people that are already kind of getting ready to leave me a comment based on that, let me just reiterate, gear and equipment is almost irrelevant. I'm definitely not saying that gear and equipment doesn't matter. Obviously, if you want to get a certain sound, then it matters, but it only matters up to a point. Because when I think of Joe Satriani's playing, I think about all the cool things that he can do on his guitar, his Ibanez models with the tremolo, the whammy bar, and the pickups, everything like that, all the cool tricks he can do. He usually gets dive bombs, or sometimes he'll get a really cool pinched harmonic and then raise the tremolo to get these like really high-pitched squeal sort of sounds. And here he is, playing a Gibson Les Paul with no whammy bar at all, with P90 pickups by the looks of it. Was it his best ever performance of Satch Boogie? Probably not. But the main takeaway is that it still sounded like Joe Satriani. In fact, I'd go as far to say that if I didn't see the video and I just heard the audio, I wouldn't even know that he was not playing his Ibanez and that he was using a Les Paul. So when I say that gear is irrelevant, that's just because to me, the bigger aspect, it's got nothing to do with the guitar, the amps, the pedals. All of those things help shape a tone, sure, but the bigger thing is the actual guitar player themselves. And if you think about it, you can name any guitar player and give them any rig, and I absolutely guarantee that that guitar player will still sound like that guitar player with whatever they're playing through. Stevie Ray Vaughan will still sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan on any guitar. Eddie Van Halen will still sound like Eddie Van Halen on any guitar with any amp. Slash, Angus Young, Steve Vai, you get the point. I was watching the recent Rick Beato interview with Joe Bonamassa, and Rick was saying to Joe how he could give Joe any guitar, any amp, and Joe would still be able to do something with it, which would resemble his guitar playing. He wouldn't feel lost, he would be able to adapt to whatever that guitar is, or amp.
I thought to myself, well, Joe can play any guitar with any sound. I could set up a telly with a clean sound through a, through a deluxe or whatever, and you would play that. Or I could hand you a Strat and you would play that, and you would, it doesn't matter, you'll adapt whatever you play to whatever sound is coming out of the amp.
Yeah.
Now there are certain things that you prefer.
Or certain things everybody prefers,
Yeah.
It's like, but one of the things about having some headroom, I mean, both in volume and in frequency. So if I'm in a session and it's like I only have a Les Paul and I'm only playing through it, you could turn this down and get pretty much a twangy thing.
And this actually isn't the first time that I've seen guitar players who are known for using very specific equipment deviate away from that and actually use something different. I remember years ago seeing a live performance of the Rolling Stones, and joining them on stage is Angus and Malcolm from AC/DC. And Angus doesn't have his Gibson SG, and Malcolm looks to be playing on something that isn't his Gretsch guitar.
Rock me, baby. Rock me all night long.
And it's hard to hear Malcolm's rhythm playing within the mix of the band and everything like that, but Angus plays a couple solos and some lead lines and stuff like that, so you can hear his playing. And whilst the tone of the guitar that he's playing, which looks to be like a Gibson 335 or something like that, it's got a much cleaner and different tone than what you'd normally associate with Angus. It still sounds like Angus, and Angus is playing. Yngwie Malmsteen, if there's ever been a guitar player that epitomized the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, it's Yngwie. Since day one, he's pretty much been on Fender Stratocasters, pretty much scalloped fretboards with Marshall amps. And that's how he gets his sound. Or is it? Here's a clip of Yngwie playing a Gibson Les Paul. Does that have exactly the same detail of tone that his usual guitar has with his usual signature pickups, Seymour Duncan I believe? Does it have exactly the same tone and sound quality and everything like that? No. But does it still sound like Yngwie? Yes, it sounds exactly like Yngwie Malmsteen. There's also a pretty popular clip from a few years ago of John Mayer playing Gravity live, and a fan hands him a guitar whilst he's in the middle of the song. And what John does, he unplugs the guitar he's currently playing and he plugs the fan's guitar in and starts using that to finish the song with. Still sounds amazing. It sounds like John Mayer's guitar playing. The guitar that the fan gives him, it looks to be some kind of Fender, because I can tell by the headstock it might be a Squier, but either way it's a different guitar with different strings, different pickups, different output, and it definitely won't have had the same professional setup that John's guitars have almost certainly had. But in that moment, none of that mattered. It was just John playing a guitar and it sounded like John playing a guitar. You could argue that Joe Satriani still sounds like Joe Satriani on the Les Paul because of the amps and pedals. You could argue that John Mayer still sounds like John Mayer because of the amps and pedals and everything like that. As I've mentioned, all of these things, they do help craft a sound. But my main point of this is to highlight something different. I mean, for me, the amp is the last thing in the chain of how a sound is created. We have the amp, before that the pedals, if there is any pedals, before that there's the guitar, and before that it's the player. And I think that before people go chasing gear and equipment to try and get the sound of their heroes, maybe they should put more focus onto the actual playing styles of their heroes and actually see what they're doing on the guitar, not the guitar itself, what amp, all that sort of stuff. What are they doing on the guitar that makes their playing sound like they're playing? That's what you should be focusing on. The thing that impressed me the most about Joe Satriani's performance on the Gibson Les Paul was all of the subtle little things that just highlight how good Joe Satriani is and how much knowledge he has of guitar playing. And it just really shows off his skill and his ability to adapt to whatever instrument he has in his hands. So for example, let's compare a few parts of the Les Paul performance to a different performance of Joe playing the same song live on his usual Ibanez guitar. Obviously his guitar that he's more familiar with his whammy bar, his tremolo system, and let's just see what he does in the same parts of the song with different guitars. So in the first performance on his Ibanez guitar, at this part of the song, he gets the pinched harmonic and then he uses the whammy bar to raise it. It's kind of like a reverse dive bomb. Sounds really cool. And that is also the same thing that he does, by the sounds of it anyway, on the original studio recording. So if that's quite an iconic little part of the song there, which goes from the intro to the next section of the song, what does he do in a live performance on a Gibson Les Paul with no whammy bar? And he simply just goes for the classic pick scrape. And whilst it sounds different, it does exactly what it's supposed to, which is to just fill the gap between the intro and the next section of the song. Another part of the song, again, shows him using the whammy bar and getting a pinched harmonic and then doing the raising thing where you'll get a pinched harmonic and raise it up to get this kind of lift on the harmonic and everything like that. And that is on the live performance with his Ibanez, and it also sounds like that happens on the studio recording too. Maybe slightly different, but it sounds like it's the same sort of technique. Whereas on the Les Paul, he actually still plays the pinched harmonics. He doesn't just go for a pick scrape this time, whereas it looks like he switches to a higher string and then physically bends the string with his left hand to get the same effect. So all in all, it looks like he has absolutely no issues performing the same song on a different guitar. And again, if someone was relying on a guitar with a whammy bar to get those certain sounds and everything like that, then they'd be completely stuck. Unlike Joe, who knows how he can get those same sounds on different guitars that don't necessarily have the same tools, whammy bars, whatever it is. He's just able to use his knowledge of the guitar to still get the sounds that he wants. So that's just something that caught my attention lately whilst I was scrolling through TikTok, and I wanted to make this video and talk about my opinion on the matter and everything like that. But I also want to know your opinion also. Do you agree with me? Is the guitar player the most important part? Or do you feel like, no, it actually is the amp, the guitar, the pedals, the rig, everything like that? That's where the sound comes from. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I didn't piss anyone off with this. But anyway, yeah, if you did enjoy the video, then don't forget to leave it a like. Leave me a comment, like I said. If you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, and hopefully I'll catch you in a future video. So take care.